Hello, everyone. My name is Tim Tang from Hughes, and welcome to our panel discussion about the role of AI in IT transformation. Today, I'm joined by Frank Kelly, CTO of Hughes Business Solutions, Sindhu Rajan, she's the VP of Enterprise Service Delivery, and Rupinder, he's our AI technical expert. Frank, if you would, could you open up our conversation by providing us some context? Can you talk a little bit about the role of AI in IT transformation?
Sure. Thanks, Tim. Well, we should start with what the challenge is. We know that in today's world that we're challenged to lower our costs, but to increase our network resilience and our network capabilities. And as we want to do that, we have to find the right technologies that will help do that. One of the huge challenges, of course, is we've moved from a point of sale cash environment to a digital marketplace, which then makes the network resilience even all the more important. So the goal here is to talk about how you can bring that about with certain technologies, specifically with AI. But let's start back a little further in the journey, because AI is really just a part of the answer. It starts with data science. And we started on this journey several years ago where we recognize we have lots of information that we can use. And if we process, we can gain insights that we couldn't gain with just individuals looking at data manually. So in particular, we started collapsing data, catching data into our systems. And that's the most first answer, is just get the data, get it in your systems. As we did that, then of course you have to find patterns in that data. And so finding patterns is where the first part of AI comes into place. There are some very good algorithms that do input on data and find patterns, whether it's textual, whether it's video, whether it's audio, whether it's just pictures, even just unstructured text. And the goal is to take that data and to find patterns, whether in a video, it's even time relationships. And then we can identify things that have value rather than having a person individually have to watch every video or read every trouble ticket. So once those patterns are established, the next step is really getting experts in. And through many years, we've spent so much time in networking, we have some subject matter experts that we've been able to plug into the data and having context, because at this point, you just have patterns. And the question is, which patterns are just causal relationships based upon math? And what other ones are actually relationships that you wouldn't expect? And when you find those relationships you wouldn't expect, those become models, and those become opportunities to learn about the system in ways you couldn't back when you were playing with an Excel spreadsheet or writing a Pascal program, going way back in history. But then ultimately, the goal is to fix problems. And that's where AI ops comes into play, because fixing problems is key to getting your costs down. And ultimately, you want to get to the point where you can fix the problems before anyone even notices they're a problem. But where you start is you identify the problem. And then as you identify the problem, we get customer service agents and others involved in using that information and taking actions. And as we trust those actions, we can either turn them over to users to take those actions via chatbot and whatever else, or we can put them into systems that automate fully those corrections. And I say corrections, but also what comes into play here is optimizations, because sometimes something's not wrong, but something can be better. And the goal of AI ops, and data science is to process large amounts of data, identify those insights, and to take action.
Excellent, excellent. Sindhu, can you describe to us some of the problems or the use cases that you're seeing in your world?
Yeah, Tim, sure. So in speaking with many of the organizations or customers that we deal with, most CIOs have one major goal in addition to cost optimization, right? That is to create an extremely seamless service experience for their customers. So if you look at today's landscape, you have customers that are connected with loyalty apps, apps, and then they come down to very smart digital menu boards, along with IoT-based devices within their within their corporate IT or a distributed store network. And from our perspective, one of the primary goals is how can we keep the network up and running all the time, and at the same time, we want to make sure that the connected experience remains undisturbed, right? So with that in mind, when we are approached by CIOs or of the company or by customers, we focus on whether it's a new network that we're deploying or if it's a migration of an existing network. Our goal was to try and make that impact very minimal, so it's actually low impact, and keeping the connectivity at a zero impact, right? With that in mind, we actually work very closely with our technical experts on some innovative solutions using AI so that installation quality is not just seamless, but it also is superb as well.
Rupinder, can you talk to us about some of these solutions?
Sure. So ensuring the installation quality is key for our service delivery. Earlier, we were relying heavily on manual auditing of those installations. With power of AI, we actually automated that process of installation image audit so that with the AI vision models, so that we are able to audit 100% of images and able to flag the poor installations. We took it to the next level and have that thing on the mobile app itself for installer so that we can provide them the feedback there itself and increase our quality of installations. That is very, very helpful in increasing our qualities. And we also incorporated AI vision model in our recently Leo application, where in our Leo service, we have take a video and we train that video model using Gen AI. We use Gen AI to train the model itself to generate images for training and then use that model for site survey for installer. So we are seeing a lot of good improvement and feedback from the installation team itself. We're also using the recent capabilities of Gen AI in our virtual assistant for field installation team, as well as how to track the orders to provide the better feedback and the installation issues and then fix those things. So we are seeing a lot of improvement in our installation process using AI.
In the world of service delivery, Sindhu, is there anything you wanted to add?
So absolutely. So if you take that, we've just covered, the deployment of a network, and then once it goes into a day two model, we get a lot of technical calls in, and these are not standard customer care calls. These are calls about complex, network issues and solutions. So previously we were not able to get easily from the calls or from tickets what our top call drivers are. So in working with the teams, what we did is we were able to go ahead and get the call transcripts, have it run through our LLM models. It gave us what our top call drivers are, and immediately we were able to turn that into very great customer experience and employee experience. We were able to go ahead and build better troubleshooting tools for our employees, which allowed us to resolve issues faster. And from our customers' perspective, they were, if they needed to call us, it was just a quick call, and we were able to reduce our handle time by over 30%.
It's the realization that the customer experience can never exceed the employee experience. Frank, can you give us a look under the covers? How do you do all these things?
Oh, well, first of all, Tim, what I would say is obviously everyone's talking cloud first, but this is one of these areas where cloud first is the enabling technology. To set yourself up with large data sets and be able to quickly roll out capabilities and then that can select large amounts of data and work on them, it's almost critical. And so most of our early work was with Google Cloud Platform, GCP, and primarily that was because it was an easy lift to start. Google was very much a community ecosystem. So you get on the platform and a lot of the tools, a lot of the capabilities are there, and it's just a matter of shopping for the right capabilities without paying extra license costs. Your license cost is what you put in, what you put out, and how much you process. So we were able to leverage the GCP platform and then very quickly we obviously adapted to BigQuery as our standard time series database because, I mean, it is the workhorse for Google Cloud Platform. The great news about that, you can partition based on time, which means you can store very large data sets. We have data sets today where we're collecting tens of millions of records per hour and per day. And being able to quickly access those, being able to quickly summarize those is only possible with a cloud like BigQuery, but not always BigQuery. Obviously, you need Postgres, and so we use Alloy under the covers. But if you go to the next layer after that, there's just so many libraries of which, in a few minutes, we can have our AI expert tell you about some of the things we've used, but they're just there and they can be used regardless of which cloud platform. But most notably, we were using RStudio, and initially because in effect, we were there before Google was had a very good ecosystem. But once our ecosystem got established, we moved to Looker Studio, which is Google Cloud Platform's AI and data science platform. So we've been using Looker Studio, which was initially called Google Data Studio for those who may be using it for a while. And then the goal really in the end is to create data sets that you've enriched with these insights and these models, as Rupinder was mentioning a minute ago, and you put that into the data and you store it in a form, in a catalog form, where others can use Tableau or whatever non-data science tool they want to use. So ultimately, the goal is to get to a point where once you build that data, you can have other people just access it and they don't need to understand the ins and outs of the data. Our time to get there from beginning to end in our first projects was 6 to 9 months. Now, I don't think anyone can challenge you to go from 6 to 9 months on any IT project in 6 to 9 months from ground up. It takes almost that long to build out the machines and get the firewalls in place and everything else. But in a cloud environment, that can be done overnight, and that really helped enable the capabilities and to allow us to grow. And if you think about it, as you grow and as you use the platform more, yes, your costs grow, but so do your savings and so does your impact to the business. So it's a really good model where you get a return on investment for your expense in the cloud. So ultimately, that's at a high level what we do, using a lot of off the shelf, using a lot of we did build our own pipelines, which I kind of missed earlier. And one of the reasons is you want resilience. So we leverage data flow and data store within Google, but we've built a lot of our own pipelines just because we want to have the resilience of the data. We want to retries. We want to make sure a wide area network has an issue, we still get the data where it needs to go. So at a nutshell, I think it really is about creating an ecosystem of tools that are easily available. But Google's not the only place we play. We also play in Azure. We also play in AWS. AWS has the advantage of there is definitely a richer set of tools. Of course, the downside of it has been cost. Every time you do a new application, you may have to buy another license for another tool. And ultimately, Azure, what we're using for some of our projects is because it's so well integrated to the whole Microsoft suite, whether it be Teams or whether it be anything else Microsoft does. And they've got a very powerful visual capabilities as well. So we primarily operate in Google, but we also use Azure and we also use AWS where they do better.
You're describing a very meaningful flexibility in the approach. Rupinder, can you talk a little bit about your process for building AI solutions?
Sure. So just to build on what Frank had just mentioned, the use of cloud. From our journey itself, when we started, we set up this data democratization so that we can bring all the data in cloud for easily accessible by other people with the proper checks and balances. So we have created this modern data analytic platform, and all the data goes into that, which is BigQuery, we're using it for that. Once we have the data there, we are using various platforms from Google Cloud, which is Vertex AI platform for our data science. We are also using Azure Open AI services for our Gen AI capabilities. AWS, which also now has a Bedrock, and they have new models for Gen AI, and also the open source model. So we are also leveraging AWS, but mainly we are on Google Cloud, as Frank has mentioned, for all our workload which is running, and using cutting edge technology from Azure for their OpenAI, because Gen AI, there are different models and different models have their own strengths. So we're leveraging all those capabilities from various cloud platforms for our AI.
Sindhu, can you speak to some of the key learnings that we have from our applications of our AI applications?
Oh, so absolutely. So Frank mentioned this earlier. One reason we wanted to do keep our AI initiative up and going is primarily because we wanted to be able to predict issues and improve performance even before the customer notices it. So that was a big advantage. So we worked very closely with Frank's team in looking at the network proactively, and then proactively fixing problems as they come in. So that was one thing that we had. The second thing is the employee efficiency gains. Primarily, this is amazing in what we had to do. In our organization, we support different services. So, for instance, we have network services, we have digital media and Wi-Fi, and I'm pretty sure most IT organizations have the same set of challenges as well. How do you train somebody with that type of with all that diverse skill sets? So, and having this automation helps us create that consistent experience for these employees, reduces their stress level quite a bit, and surprisingly enough, also has kept my attrition rates even lower. We have very low attrition rate, but even lower with that as well. And more importantly, it is the savings that we've had with the efficiencies gained from there in terms of costs of running the business itself.
Are there any metrics that you can share?
Sure. For instance, we did AI ops for a few of our customers where we looked at proactively at their network and resolved problems. With that, about certain customers, we have 90% of a reduction in their hard down locations, which means there is no interruption to service. So, we provide a WAN network, and having this proactive resolution helps us amazingly create a very, very frictionless experience.
A 90% reduction. That's outstanding. Now, Rupinder, Frank, what surprises you about AI?
So what surprises me about AI is basically the capability of understanding natural language and how it can now do reasoning and complex tasks. It can perform complex tasks. And what we are now looking is just how these virtual assistants and AI agents, how we're able to use them to power and automate more of the processes and remove the human in the loop so that we can increase productivity and performance.
When you look down the future, in light of all the things that have been accomplished so far, Sindhu, what do you see coming down next? What will be our next objectives?
So from my end, it is continuing to partner with our customers to try and see where their business is growing, and to be able to proactively and predictively upgrade or give them recommendations to upgrade the networks. As I speak with them, their customers' needs are going extremely complex, as well as their and so does their network needs, and it is important that we are able to keep up through automation and able to address it accordingly.
Frank, can you kind of give us a little bit of the vision of where the future of AI for Hughes is?
Sure. And I'll start with what have been some of the challenges, because the future is based upon solving those challenges. We have seen in some situations where when you apply the models and everything else, you don't get any good information out. One example we had is in our wireless business, using the information we had coming out of the devices. No matter how we looked at it, we could not associate a problematic site to a problem. So what we recognized is we had to get more data. So, the first problem is getting more data, and that means that we have to go more towards agents. We have to distribute the collection and the intelligence of the data to the individual components out there. Otherwise, we just can't get enough data. And then we also have to make that efficient to get it back. So the reality is once you do that, the goal is to create an environment where you can identify the root cause of any problem. And so where I see us going in the future is that we can identify that root cause, that we can take corrective action automatically. And when we can't, that we tell the person what they need, the person that can fix it, how to fix it. But how do we get there? First, the first point of getting there is to obviously get the information to our call centers and in front of our individuals that run the network, so that they can take the action and so that we can track and we can create trust. And once we create that trust, then there will be an appetite for wanting to automate it, especially if I give an action to Sindhu's group where they have to go do a reset 20 times a day or 50 times a day. If it works 50 times a day, she's going to want us to automate that. And so that's the goal. The goal is fix problems you can and let the right person know about problems you can.
Excellent. Excellent. Is there any advice that you could offer to enterprises as they think about their AI journeys? Based on the things that we've learned, what kind of advice would you guide other executives in terms of how to think about AI and what they should be doing?
Well, I would start by saying that let's focus on the problem to be solved and not all the buzzwords. There's a big challenge. Everybody wants to say they're doing AI. But let's start with what problem are we solving? I know in our situation, the problem we were solving was finding ways to make the network more resilient. So we started with identifying what can go wrong with the network and how to pull that data to identify that. So I think you have to start with what problem you're solving, and you have to make sure that the data you're retrieving is sufficient to answer the question. And then selecting the right tools, of course, is critical. But the great news about that is I can try 20 things, and if the last one works, I'm still successful. So I see data science and AI as a very R&D oriented venture, where you're gonna have some false starts. So you need to keep in mind that you may not have that immediate gratification when you send your team off to go build the next AI ops model. It may take you 5 or 6 tries of something, and it may take you grabbing more data or building agents. But ultimately, I think you can get there.
Sindhu, Rupinder?
So, from my perspective, and I want to add on to what Frank mentioned, don't do AI for the sake of doing AI. I think that's the right thing. You want to focus on what your customer's journey is, where is the most impact, and in terms of both the experience and the cost, and then pick the right set of problems to solve them, right? And then the approach needs to be to marry that with great data. And as Frank and I have gone through this several times, so therefore we know bad data will not get us anywhere. So having to focus on that. And in our case, I want to just go with an example here. We were able to actually listen to calls coming in, mostly technical calls, not just from customers asking about their invoices, actual technical issues from POS vendors, things like that, or from our customers that are franchisee owners or large enterprise help desks coming into us and listening to auditory contextual responses by our support agents, we were able to actually turn that into a great experience, which resulted in a 17% increase in our CSAT results, right? So this is what I would say to anybody out there as they look at it, and if they have a budget to handle this, is to focus on both the most impactful and the most cost-effective way.
Excellent. Rupinder?
So the new capabilities of AI is amazing, especially the Gen AI. And what I want to be careful is to how to mitigate the risk, because we need to be very careful when putting all these new trendy AI solutions in front of end customers. So proper governance should be in place. Proper checks and balances should be in place, especially for Gen AI applications, because these are natural language outputs that you will get it from those models, and you need to have proper checks, proper what you can say audits in place, so that you know that whatever you're putting in front of end customer is actually correct. So I think that's what I
Excellent.
think is.
Excellent. There's no denying that there is an amazing flood of AI technologies that are coming our way. But a very disciplined focus on the business problems that need to be solved is a tremendous filter for basically kind of sifting through all that noise and to be able to focus your limited efforts and your limited talents and expertise and resources on solving to achieve those business results. Thank you. Thank you very much for taking the time to speak with us. I've been speaking with Frank Kelly, the CTO of Hughes Business Solutions, Sindhu Rajan, the Vice President of our Enterprise Service Delivery, and Rupinder, our AI technical expert.